Our gospel reading for today comes from Luke chapter 23 as we see the dialogue between the thief on the cross and Jesus and his mercy. There followed Jesus a great multitude of the people and of women who were mourning and lamenting for him. But turning to them, Jesus said, "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For behold, the days are coming when they will say, 'Blessed are the barren, and the wombs that never bore, and the breasts that never nursed.' Then they will begin to say to the mountains, 'Fall on us,' and to the hills, 'Cover us.' For if they do these things when the wood is green, what will happen when it is dry?" Two others who were criminals were led away to be put to death with him. And when they came to the place that is called the Skull, there they crucified him and the criminals, one on his right and one on his left. And Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." And they cast lots to divide his garments, and the people stood by watching. But the rulers scoffed at him, saying, "He saved others. Let him save himself, if he is the Christ of God, his chosen one." The soldiers also mocked him, coming up and offering him sour wine and saying, "If you are the King of the Jews, save yourself." There was also an inscription over him, "This is the King of the Jews." One of the criminals who were hanged railed at him, saying, "Are you not the Christ? Save yourself and us." But the other rebuked him, saying, "Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation, and we indeed justly, for we are receiving the due reward of our deeds, but this man has done nothing wrong." And he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And he said to him, "Truly I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise." This is the gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. You may. But with that in mind, it is interesting because we're right now in the season of, at the end of the church year, season after Pentecost. And also this time of year, we celebrate something. And even though it's a few days away, I will say a happy Thanksgiving. We'll have to say it now since we don't have service. It'd be kind of weird if I said it next week, so I'll say it now. We have a lot to be thankful for, and we'll have a little video to show later talking about that. But it is interesting because for this, because it's the end of the church year, normally we don't have texts that have Jesus on the cross. The thief on the cross text, which is Luke 23, is normally reserved for Lent, or the week, the Holy Week during Easter, or at least up to Easter, and yet we have it here today. And so for our text, I would like to focus on the words. This is verse 43, and Jesus said to him, "Truly I say to you, you will be with me in paradise." Would you pray with me, by the way? May the words of my mouth, the meditation of all our hearts, be ever pleasing and acceptable in your sight, O Lord. Amen. Now, since we are looking at the thief on the cross, there is a very interesting tradition with this story. The thief, even though the Bible doesn't give us his name, there's a tradition, a church tradition that goes very far back that does have this guy's name. His name was Dismas. That's spelled D-Y-S-M-A-S, Dismas. Now, Dismas, and we're going to call him that for the purposes of our message, well, we know he wasn't alone. There was another thief up there. And we have a profound message of forgiveness that we see with the thief on the cross, especially in Jesus' words. And not just for them, but even Jesus calling for the Father to forgive all the people who put Jesus on that cross. Now, and for our message today, I'm going to depart from my usual practice. I'm going to do something a little different. I have a script I wrote a while back, and it's a script where we're going to look first person from the perspective of the thieves. So we're going to have two perspectives coming from where they're at, and to help articulate, illustrate, and give force to the words that they say to Jesus and the words Jesus says back to them. I've created fictitious stories, kind of like they do in The Chosen. So we're going to listen to some stories to build these guys up, and we're going to see how this works out. The thief, you have Dismas. He's the one that realizes that he's the unjust one. But then we have another guy, I named him Felix. Felix is the one who thinks he is justified and he doesn't belong on that cross. So you get two perspectives, and this is coming from, this is at the moment that both of them are hanging on the cross next to Jesus in our text. This is from Felix's perspective. Injustice, that is my life. Injustice is all I've ever known. Injustice from when I was a small child. I still remember those early years, watching my mother and father toil in the fields under constant fear of our master, Callistus. More of a tyrant than a master, Callistus forced them to work daily in the hot sun with little or no break and barely enough water to go around. I remember the harsh tone Callistus always used with them, accusing them of not working fast enough or calling them lazy when they complained of blisters or sunburn. Even worse was the harsh crack of that whip, a whip that usually found its mark on my parents' backs in the evenings after Callistus's hired hands would tally up all my parents' alleged mistakes. A crack that seemed to grow more frequent the older I got. A crack which would leave many bruises on my back as well as I got old enough to work those same fields, yet could never seem to please my master. Injustice, that was my childhood. An evening without a whipping seemed to grow rarer and rarer, and not just for me, but also for my overworked parents. I'll never forget that evening where Callistus himself was behind the whip, far angrier than usual. An anger which fueled a relentless string of cracking whips, triple the usual amount. Yet this time, though, when Callistus finally ceased, the poor victim didn't get up. The victim was Dad. Injustice. That's why I left. The night had finally come for my great escape. It was nearing harvest season, so I had fully grown crops to use as cover. I remember sneaking about halfway across the field before I heard a voice. Hey, who's out there? No, it wasn't the shrill tone of Callistus. Instead, the high-pitched sound matched that of Lucius, a hired hand of Callistus whose demeanor was more calm and kind. Yet this didn't matter, for if Lucius, Callistus, or any hired hand caught me, the punishment would be far worse than what my father experienced on his fateful night. Who's there? The voice grew louder. I quietly moved away from it, making further progress toward the edge of the estate, toward the edge of my freedom. Yet with only a few cubits to go, I felt a pair of hands grab my legs. The hands felt familiar, as they were the same hands which had grabbed me many times before, hands which would then bind my wrists in preparation for the whip. Only this time, though, the hands would likely do far more worse than bind me. They would carry me to my death. Injustice. That's why he's dead. I liked Lucius, really. Occasionally, he'd share his skin of water with me and the others in the field on especially hot days. He often had a smile and could sometimes talk our tyrant of a master out of a whipping. But not this time. Anyone caught escaping was assured death. It was either him or me then who would come out of this alive. It was me. Occasionally, I still see his face. I remember the kindness he used to show me, a kindness which even now provokes my conscience to guilt. But better my life than his, or else it would have been a greater injustice. That's why I stole. A life free of Callistus is better than any life. Or yet a runaway slave lacks status, a home, a family, and most importantly, denarii. Whether you have money or not, you still got to eat. It wasn't hard learning who the wealthy are in Jerusalem. When they travel outside the city, they have long caravans, carts with plenty of cover and places to hide. After all, that's how I got past the Roman guard and into Jerusalem. And on the streets, their clothing is very telling of their status. Roman elites, high-ranking military officers, Sadducees, Pharisees, and tax collectors. It was always easy to swipe from the tax collectors, not so much of where they wore their money bags, but because of how their money was also probably stolen. It was therefore just to take from them, so that I could at least make do with the little food and clothing I could afford. Mind you, the tax collectors still seemed to have no trouble clothing themselves and putting food on their own plates. I do, however, still feel some guilt with Dismas, the fellow runaway who now hangs next to me and faces the same death. He was my partner in crime, my best friend. We watched out for each other, made sure the other had enough food and water, even if it meant taking from kids. But once that shopkeeper was pursuing us for stealing some bread, I separated from Dismas. I ran a different direction because, well, I knew I could get away. I mean, after all, Dismas knew what I had been through. So if I were to get caught alongside him, it would have only been a greater injustice. That's why I'm on this cross. I know why Dismas was mad at me for ditching him, but he had no right telling the Roman soldiers that I was a runaway. He told them my name, the name of Callistus, and even where our hideout was. So of course I was justified in blabbing about his runaway status too when they brought me in. He deserved it. He deserved to be caught and face crucifixion. If only his master were still alive like mine, to be present and watch him suffer. Just like that old tyrant Callistus is. Felix, he calls out mockingly. Felix. Oh, what a horrid name. As Felix means happy or fortunate. Not my life at all. And now I must face my final injustice, death. If only I had a way out. If only people could see the injustice taking place. Or maybe I deserve to be up here a little bit, but not as much as the man next to me. Pfft, King of the Jews. How ridiculous. Who in the right mind would claim to be the Son of God? Only a blasphemer. I turn to Jesus. Are you not the Christ? Save yourself and us. Save us, for if you really are the Christ, then show the world that I don't deserve to die. Such is the perspective of Felix. Let's hear the other side from Dismas. Injustice. That was my life. Injustice was all I ever knew. Like Felix, I too had a cruel master. Like Felix, I too escaped by the skin of my teeth. And like Felix, I spent my life trying to justify theft. And not just from the rich, but even from little kids. They didn't deserve it. And yes, I probably am the reason both he and I are on these crosses right now. I know I spoke in anger when I revealed his true identity to the guard, and I should have known that he would do the same back. After all, he betrayed me when we fled from that shopkeeper. It all felt like injustice, but that's not fully true. I can't believe I'm saying this. Like Felix, I spent my entire life acting as a victim which attempted to justify everything I'd ever done wrong. I was angry, always angry, though I don't quite have Felix's temper. But as I look at the man on the cross next to me, I see a greater injustice. No, a true injustice. This man, the famous Jesus of Nazareth, he had done nothing wrong. I'll admit, though, how at first I also thought he was crazy, as anyone who calls themselves the Son of God is either blaspheming or, well, really is the Christ. And the more I watch Jesus, the more I see someone not filled with anger, but filled with genuine compassion. I mean, what kind of a man would ask God to forgive his killers after being scourged, brutally whipped, and nailed to a cross? What kind of a man would ask God to forgive his accusers, those actively mocking him even now? And what kind of a man, if he really could come off that cross, would stay there anyway? Stay there for the sake of everyone who wants him dead. Injustice. That is injustice. Only the Christ, the King of the Jews, is on that cross. I turn to Felix. Felix, do you not fear God, since you are under the same condemnation, and we indeed justly? For we are receiving the due reward of our deeds, but this man has done nothing wrong. I turn to Jesus. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. We know the story ends shortly after for those two thieves, but actually only for one, because one of them recognized his injustice. The other spent his life trying to justify himself. But for Dismas, the one who repented, his life was only beginning. For Jesus had responded that, truly I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise. No one is too far from Jesus' forgiveness. All are able to receive that. And this week, as we celebrate Thanksgiving, as we bring together family, as we do our traditions, enjoy a good turkey or whatever you eat on Thanksgiving, remember the greatest gift you have, which is your salvation. And I'm sure there are some who will be at our table, maybe who don't know Jesus. Some who try and spend their whole lives justifying their actions and their words, thinking it's good enough. Keep praying for them. Because I'll tell you what, even they can be forgiven. Because we one day will join Dismas in paradise. Amen.